There is a very specific smell that a lot of people quietly fall in love with. It's the smell of cured leather, off-gassing plastics, and brand new carpet that has never seen a stain or a spill. In America, we don't call it chemicals or manufacturing residue. We call it new car smell. And to most people, that smell doesn't just mean a vehicle. It means safety. It means stability. It means, I'm finally doing okay. I'm your grandma investor. I've watched people chase that smell for decades, not because they love cars, but because they love what that smell promises. It whispers that you made it, that you're not falling behind, that your hard work finally turned into something you can touch, sit in, and drive home. And I understand that feeling, truly, because when life feels uncertain, anything that feels solid feels comforting. But here's the uncomfortable truth I've learned after a lifetime of watching money move. That smell isn't comfort. It's a signal. And if you know how money actually works, it's a signal you don't celebrate. To most people, that smell marks a milestone, a quiet victory, a moment where you tell yourself, I've earned this. But when you strip the emotion away and look at the math, that same smell tells a very different story. To someone who understands money, new car smell is the scent of value evaporating. The moment you drive that car off the lot, the clock starts running against you, not slowly. Immediately, 10 to 20% of the value disappears in the first few minutes, and it never comes back. Nothing broke. Nothing changed. You didn't use it. You just moved it. If you bought a $50,000 stock and watched it drop to $40,000 before you even reached the parking lot, you wouldn't call that success. You'd call it a disaster. You'd panic. You'd ask, who misled you? Yet with cars, we've been trained to celebrate the exact same loss. That's not an accident. That's conditioning. Somewhere along the way, we stopped questioning the biggest checks we write every month. We'll debate a $5 coffee like it's a moral failure. We'll cancel a streaming subscription to feel responsible. But then we walk into a dealership and sign a contract for $700, $800, sometimes $1,000 a month, and we don't even flinch. We shrug and say the most dangerous sentence in middle-class America. Everyone has a car payment. That sentence sounds harmless, practical, adult. But what it really does is shut your brain off. Once something is labeled normal, it stops being examined. Normal becomes invisible. And invisible decisions are the ones that quietly shape your entire financial future. I've watched people with six-figure incomes live paycheck to paycheck, not because they're reckless, but because they accepted that phrase without ever running the numbers. The car payment stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like gravity. Just part of life, just something you carry. And that's exactly how it keeps carrying your money away, month after month, year after year. One of the most expensive mistakes I see people make isn't the car itself. It's the story they tell themselves about it. They say, I own a $50,000 car, and they quietly add it to their mental net worth. But here's the definition that changes everything. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out. By that definition, a car is not an asset. It never was. A car is a consumer good. It behaves more like a toaster than an investment. Except it costs as much as a small house and demands constant feeding, insurance, fuel, maintenance, repairs, registration, and, unlike an asset, it doesn't grow. It decays. Every mile you drive is value leaving the vehicle. Every year that passes makes it worth less than the year before. There is no compounding in your favor. There is only erosion. And once you see that clearly, you realize the problem isn't that cars are evil. The problem is pretending something that drains cash every month is somehow helping you build wealth. Here's the part almost no one feels in real time. The biggest loss doesn't happen slowly. It happens instantly. The moment that car leaves the dealership, it falls off a financial cliff. 10. Sometimes 20% of its value disappears before you've driven a single mile to work. Nothing failed. Nothing broke. The loss just happens. Imagine buying a $50,000 stock and watching it drop to $40,000 in the first 60 seconds. You'd feel sick. You'd blame yourself. You'd swear off investing. But with cars, we've learned to ignore the same math because the loss is quiet and the object is emotional. We celebrate what we would panic over anywhere else. And that's the trick. Depreciation doesn't send a bill. It doesn't buzz your phone. It just drains value in the background while you tell yourself you're enjoying the ride. By the time you feel it, the damage is already locked in. This is where the psychology turns predatory. When you sit down at a dealership, no one wants to talk about the price of the car. They don't want to talk about interest rates either. They want to talk about one thing only: the monthly payment. What number feels comfortable to you? That question isn't meant to help you. It's meant to narrow your vision. Once your brain locks onto a monthly number, everything else becomes flexible. The term gets stretched. The interest rate quietly rises. The loan gets pushed from 60 months to 72, then to 84, sometimes even longer. Any car can look affordable if you're willing to rent it from your future long enough. And $60,000 truck you clearly couldn't afford suddenly feels reasonable at $850 a month. But here's what most people miss. You're not paying for transportation anymore. You're paying for time. Time you don't get back. Time your money could have been working for you instead of disappearing into interest. And the cruel part is this. By the time you realize the payment feels heavy, you're already locked in. Most people stop thinking once they see the sticker price. $40,000, $50,000. They tell themselves that's the cost of the car. It isn't. That number is just the entry fee. The real cost shows up later, spread out quietly so it doesn't scare you all at once. First comes sales tax. Thousands of dollars gone the moment the paperwork is signed. Then comes interest. At today's rates, a typical auto loan quietly adds $8,000 to $10,000 in pure profit for the bank. Money you never touch. Money that builds nothing for you. Then there's insurance. Newer, more expensive cars cost more to insure every single month, year after year. And modern cars aren't simple machines anymore. They're rolling computers. When something breaks, it's not a $50 fix. It's a $1,000 sensor, a calibration, a software issue. Add fuel, registration, and routine maintenance, and the numbers keep stacking. By the time 5 years pass, that $40,000 car has often cost $70,000 to $80,000, and what's left is a vehicle worth a fraction of that. You didn't just buy transportation. You paid a premium to watch money slowly disappear without making a sound. This is the part that never shows up on a statement. The most expensive cost of that car isn't what you pay. It's what your money never gets the chance to become. Opportunity cost is invisible. And that's why it's so easy to ignore. Let's make it concrete. The average new car payment in America today hovers around $700 a month. For many people, once you add higher insurance, it's closer to $800. Now imagine you're 25 years old. Instead of locking yourself into a new car every few years, you buy a reliable used car in cash and invest that $800 every month. You do nothing fancy. No trading, no genius picks. You just let time work. At a modest, long-term market return, that single decision compounds into millions of dollars by the time you reach retirement age, not hundreds of thousands. Millions. That's the cost of just a car payment. It's always automated. So, when you see a shiny SUV on the highway, don't think of horsepower or leather seats. Think of the trade being made. That driver isn't just moving down the road. They're spending a future they haven't lived yet. So if the math is this clear, why do smart, capable people keep making the same decision? Because cars aren't sold with logic. They're sold with emotion. First comes safety. Automakers have perfected the message that if you don't drive something big, heavy, and new, you're being reckless with your family. More airbags, more sensors, more features. The fear is subtle, but it works. You're not buying metal. You're buying peace of mind. Then, there's status. A car is one of the few things you can display to strangers without saying a word. You can't wear your retirement account to the grocery store. You can't show off your investment portfolio in traffic, but you can show your car. It becomes an avatar, a way of signaling that you're doing well, even if your bank account tells a different story. And the most dangerous part? We call these stories deserving it. Comfort and validation feel reasonable. But reasonable stories can still lead to unreasonable outcomes. So if the math is this clear, why do smart, capable people keep making the same decision? Because cars aren't sold with logic, they're sold with emotion. First comes safety. Automakers have perfected the message that if you don't drive something big, heavy, and new, you're being reckless with your family. More airbags, more sensors, more features. The fear is subtle, but it works. You're not buying metal. You're buying peace of mind. Then there's status. A car is one of the few things you can display to strangers without saying a word. You can't wear your retirement account to the grocery store. You can't show off your investment portfolio in traffic. But you can show your car. It becomes an avatar, a way of signaling that you're doing well, even if your bank account tells a different story. And the most dangerous part? We call these stories deserving it. Comfort and validation feel reasonable, but reasonable stories can still lead to unreasonable outcomes. Leasing is often sold as the smart alternative. Lower payments, a new car every few years, no long-term commitment. But strip away the language, and the reality is simple. Leasing means you're paying for the most expensive years of a car's life and then handing it back right before it becomes cheap to own. You absorb the steepest depreciation and keep none of the value. It's the most expensive way to operate a vehicle, dressed up as flexibility. And now, it's getting worse. Subscription features, monthly fees for heated seats, faster acceleration, basic functionality that used to come standard. Transportation is being turned into a recurring revenue stream when every feature, every upgrade, every mile becomes a payment. You're not owning a car anymore. You're renting a lifestyle that quietly keeps you broke, 1 month at a time. The answer isn't to punish yourself or drive something unsafe and miserable. That's never been the point. There's a middle ground most people ignore because it doesn't flatter the ego. The sweet spot sits right where depreciation has already done its damage, but the car still has most of its life left. 3 to 5 years old, proven, boring, reliable. By that point, someone else already paid the emotional premium of driving it off the lot. They absorbed the biggest loss. You step in after the value collapse, not before it. The car still has modern safety features, still runs well, still gets you where you need to go. What it doesn't have is the price tag that steals your future. And here's the part that matters most. When you keep that car for a long time, eventually the payments stop. That payment-free period is where real wealth starts quietly forming, not through sacrifice, but through patience, through letting time finally work on your side instead of against you. This is the part no spreadsheet can calculate. To follow this path, you have to let something go. Your ego. You have to be willing to pull into a parking lot and not win the comparison game. To drive past the shiny new models and feel nothing. That's harder than it sounds. I've seen people with brand new luxury cars lose sleep every night, one unexpected expense away from panic. And I've seen others in 5-year-old sedans breathe easily because their money finally belongs to them. Freedom doesn't look impressive from the outside. It feels impressive on the inside. Choosing an older car isn't about deprivation. It's about refusing to rent approval with interest. It's deciding that peace, liquidity, and optionality matter more than applause from strangers you'll never meet. So, the next time you feel that familiar pull toward an upgrade, pause for a moment. Not to judge yourself, not to feel guilty, just to ask one honest question. Is this shiny box of metal worth the life it's quietly taking from my future? Cars are tools. They move your body from point A to point B. They are not investments. They are not extensions of your identity. And they are not proof that you've made it. The real proof is freedom. The ability to sleep at night. The ability to say no. The ability to walk away when you want to. I've watched enough financial stories end to know this much is true. You don't lose wealth all at once. You trade it away slowly, in decisions that feel normal. Choose carefully which ones you keep,